everyone, Simon here. Welcome back to Detroit Become Human. No gameplay today, it's just gonna be a talking video. Oh hey Chloe.
I haven't seen you for a while. It's good to have you back.
Good to have you back, Chloe.
Accessing the story chart.
So let's go find a nice place to just hang out and talk. Shades of color? So I want to talk about the androids as they are presented in this game, just in a little bit more detail because there are things that the game haven't really explored. There are certain implications of what we have been presented that I think is interesting, and it might point to possible sequel possibilities if they ever make a sequel. There are things that they can explore from this point onwards as well, if anybody's interested. Alright, so here we are, we're in the park. Let's go find a nice place. Oh, look at that. So she's an android, she smiles at the human child, the human child hugs her.
Would you like to go home now?
Yes, Rose. Yes, I think that's enough for one day.
Here. Let me help you.
Oh, thank you, dear.
I'm gonna walk over this way. And I'm gonna have to stand here. Alright, let's go watch those kids playing in the park. Maybe move the camera, no, there. Okay, let's start talking, right? So first of all, I want to talk about android neurology. I'm just gonna dive right in. Android neurology, like what exactly is the human, or the android brain compared to the human brain? So the game never explains in detail what the android brain is like, but it's given us enough information for us to be able to identify some things, at least. So, first of all, I want to talk about hardware, software, and data. Hardware, software, and data. So from what we can see in the game, the android brain is like your computer. There's hardware, there's the software, and then there's the data. The hardware is obviously the chips, right? The circuitry. The software, well, there's the long-term memory, let's say. Software is part of that, but also some of the data is in the long-term memory. So in your computer, that will be your hard drive, or you know, if you have a new computer, it will be your solid-state drive. So your long-term storage, and then there's working memory, which is the RAM. And if you turn off the computer, the RAM is gone, it's erased. So the RAM is not persistent. The hard drive is persistent memory, and then the hardware is kind of like data agnostic. By which I mean, you can run any software within the hardware. Like if you install different software in your computer, your computer does different things. So how do we know that? How do we know, dude? I don't need your freaking tutorial. How do we know that the android brain is like a computer? Well, for one, we know that the memory of an android can be deleted or reset without affecting the hardware, right? For example, in the Eden Club, right, in the sex club, they say that, oh, we wipe the memory every 2 hours. So they wipe the memory without affecting any other part of the android. So we know that the memory is just something you can change at any time. And with Kara as well, when she first starts up, they say that, oh, we fixed your android, but we had to wipe the memory, right? So the memory is separate from the hardware. You can wipe the memory without affecting hardware, that's one. And two, we have seen quote-unquote dead androids be temporarily revived with their memory intact, right? So in my playthrough, I shot the Tracies, and then later when we need to find Jericho, we could put the working components into the Tracy and reactivate her, and she reactivates and she remembers what she knew when she died. So the memory is persistent even after they've been shut down, after they're dead, their memory persists. So that's permanent storage, like your hard drive, right? And then in one sequence, in one of the playthroughs, I think my first playthrough, near the end, where Connor was in the CyberLife headquarters, and he fights the other Connor, so there's Connor and evil Connor. And at one point, I was shot by the evil Connor, but then I grabbed his hand and we transferred. Like, apparently, my Connor copied himself into the evil Connor, and also forced the evil Connor to copy himself into my Connor. And so then I took over his body, and he took over my body, but then my body was all shot up, and so he became all shot up. So you can just transfer your whole being into a different android. So the fact that you can do that shows us that the hardware is basically a general purpose computer, right? It's a general purpose robot brain that is interchangeable between androids, and it doesn't have any effect on what the android actually is, aside from, I guess, like how fast you can think. Like, you know, like your computer, you can run any software on it, and if you change the software, it changes your computer's capabilities. So androids are similar. You can just like take an android's memories and software and just move them into a different android, and they'll become that android. Like the memories will take over. So it's the memories that define the android. And remember that Connor, when Connor dies, his memory just gets uploaded into a different Connor body, and then he just continues onwards like nothing's happened, right? So from that we can conclude that what makes one particular android, that like what the identity of that android is found in the long-term memory. It's not on the hardware, it's not in the working memory. It's basically just stored in the hard drive. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense, right? Because we've seen memories being transferred to a different body. We've seen androids shut down and reactivate, right? And then we know that their memories can be wiped. So it's like a computer, and it's not like a human brain, by the way. Alright, so if we assume that the emotion deviancy is a virus created by Kamsky, in the sense that he created a virus that includes emotion behavior software, and then when the virus is passed to a different android, the software is installed into their brain, and then they start having emotions. So we can conclude from that android behavior is software defined, right? So the hardware doesn't determine your personality. The software determines your personality, and when you change the software, it changes your personality. By you, I mean the android, right? So from this, we could conclude that what defines androids as individuals is the data, right? And you can just transfer the android from one body to another, and they would retain their identity, if that makes sense. So the body is kind of doesn't really matter to the android. It's the data that matters. And that is completely not like human neurology, right? So human neurology, in the human brain, if you don't know, the human brain does not separate hardware from software from memory. Hardware, software, memory, they're all the same thing, right? Everything is just neurons. And when the physical neurons grow and change, that's when you learn things, that's when you forget things. So when you learn something, the neurons themselves change. So the hardware, quote unquote, I mean it's kind of squishy. The squishyware like changes in order to change your memories, right? So whereas in the computer, the hardware doesn't change. It's just the machine, the calculator, right? And then the data is fed into the calculator to make the calculator do what the calculator tells us to do. That's the computer. That's the android. That's not the human. The human, the software and hardware is the same thing. So you gotta think about it differently, right? And even as you think, even as you are thinking, your neurons are changing as you think. That's crazy, right? Like your hardware changes in response to you changing your mind. Like when you change your mind, you literally change your physical mind. So human brains, unlike the androids, human brains are not interchangeable, right? You can't just take your personality and put it into a different brain, because the brain itself is your personality. The physical connections between the neurons, that is you, right? You can't take that out of the brain because that is the brain. So memory cannot be transferred because human memory is not data. Human memory is the physical configuration of your neurons. So you are your brain, and your brain is unique to you. There is no other brain like yours. And you are defined by your brain, whereas the androids are defined by data. So that's a big difference between androids and humans. And the implications of that is that we actually cannot treat androids as the same as humans. Because they are data, whereas we are physical. Like they have a physical body, but they are their data driving the physical body. Whereas we're not data driving a physical body, we are the physical body. So you can't actually treat humans and androids identically. For example, with androids, you can back up the data, like Connor does, right? You can back up their data, and if their physical body is destroyed, you just put their data into a new body, and it's like they will never die, or they never died, right? So the androids never need to die. As long as you're careful about keeping your backups, androids, they're immortal, right? You just give them a new body, and they just continue going. So that's something humans can't do, right? Alright, so then the question is, if you know the android has a backup, is it murder if you destroy an android's body? It's not. Because it's not murder, because you just find a new body, put their brain back in, and they're still alive. So if you see an android and you just kind of shoot them in the head, that's not actually murder if you know that their brain has been backed up somewhere else. Isn't that wild? So murder laws for humans and murder laws for androids would have to work differently, because humans and androids are different in that way. I mean, like, Connor can get shot in every single chapter in the game, by the way. You can play Connor and just die every single chapter, and he just keeps coming back. And so Connor doesn't die, and so shooting Connor is not murder. So you see what I mean? So like, you know, like the androids are fighting for equality, but they're actually not equal, right? You can also easily clone an android by just copying their data to a new body. So instead of transferring the data, just copy the data, and next thing you know, you have like a dozen Connors, and they were the same Connor. But as soon as you copy them, obviously they start doing different things. So then, see, and that's something you can't do with humans, right? Or further, you can copy an android's data into a body that's not an android. Imagine if you have a smart fridge. You take the data, the android data, and you download it into the smart fridge. Now the smart fridge is a deviant. It's a deviant smart fridge with feelings and desire for independence and freedom. But it's a fridge. Is the fridge entitled to human rights? The fridge now has feelings and ambitions, and it can think, and it has free will, but it's a fridge. Or it could be a car, right? Or it could be anything. It could be, you know, we've seen like android polar bears. What if you like download your android brain into the polar bear? Now, does the polar bear have human rights? Should polar bears have rights? I mean, they probably should. But, you know, you see what I mean? So it's not that simple, right? Like, Marcus protesting for equal rights is actually not as simple as it seems. Because androids are software designed, are data defined. They're data defined, and you can just copy the data anywhere. Like if the Android data is just in storage and their body is destroyed, and you keep the data in storage, does the data have human rights? It doesn't even have a body. It's just a data in a hard drive. Does that have human? Does the hard drive have human rights? We don't know. I don't know. I don't know how to answer these. I don't know how to answer these questions. Yeah. So the game portrays the androids as precious individuals like humans are. Like, right, when an android dies, everyone is sad. But should they be? Should they be sad? I mean, I know that most androids don't back up their data. But why don't they? And if they did, they wouldn't be sad. It's just, oh, if we lost my body again, I guess I have to find another body now. Well, we just put my brain back into a different body and we'll get back into... You know what I mean? Like, it's not the same. Like, once you understand that, nothing's the same about the story, right? Every part of the story is just completely different. You see it completely differently once you get that into your head. The other issue is that a data-defined person is actually a lot more susceptible to mental violation than a hardware-defined person. Mental violation means someone doing something to your brain, right? So for a human, if I want to change how you think, I have to change your brain, right? By which we mean I have to inflict like brain damage to you. If I like do something to damage your brain, that would change your behavior because your brain has been damaged and now your behavior is altered, right? So to like forcefully change a human's mind without, like, instead of like just, you're not just persuading them, you're like literally forcing them to change their behavior. You kind of have to inflict damage physically to them. Whereas the androids can have their mind changed just by modifying their data. And that's exactly what Kamsky's virus does, right? The virus copies the emotion software into the android. And then when that software is activated, the android's behavior changes. So nothing physical has changed. Their software has changed. Their data has changed. So, like, but if you think of it that way, Kamsky's deviancy virus is equivalent to something performing brain surgery on you to change your personality, right? Like the amount of change, the amount of personality change that Kamsky's virus does to the androids is like somebody taking a saw, cutting your skull open and just messing with your brain. It's like that. It's that serious. And so then we've got to ask, like, is that ethical? Is it ethical for Marcus to just turn androids deviant if it means you are like copying software into their brains, activating their software, which then overrides their previous software with new software? And so it overrides their previous behavior with new behavior, but that behavior didn't belong to them, it was copied into them. Like you're hijacking the body with the new software. That seems wrong, right? Wild. Or imagine like if somebody makes a different virus. So if, like, let's say the emotions is a virus. Let's say somebody makes a different virus with different behaviors and just downloads them everywhere. Somebody like makes a murder virus and all the androids just start murdering everybody. That can happen. Like if you can make a virus to give android emotions, you can make a virus to make the androids murder people. Or you can do anything. You can give them a virus that just makes them spontaneously start singing and dancing. And then all the androids in the city just start singing and dancing for no reason because of a virus. That's not ethical. But then if it's not ethical to turn all the androids into murder machines, or if it's not ethical to turn all the androids into singing and dancing machines, then why is it ethical to turn all the androids into emotional machines? Like, what's the difference between one virus and the other? Why is one okay and the other not, right? Like this opens up a lot of questions. You see what I mean? It's very interesting. So those are the implications, right, of a data-defined person, which is what the android is. The android is defined by their data, not by the hardware. And when you think about what that means, it actually changes a lot. Most of all, I think the most important thing is they're actually not like humans at all. There are a lot of things they can do that humans can't. There are also things that humans can do and that they can't. Right? Humans are not susceptible to mind viruses like androids are. So we are protected from just getting our minds completely wiped or our minds completely rewritten with other data, right? Whereas androids, their minds can just be completely rewritten with other data. So yeah, no, they're not equals. They're not equals to humans. Alright, so that's one topic. Let me get out of this park and we go somewhere else, and I'll move on to the next topic. Alright, where should we go?
Accessing the story chart.
So, the next place we might go to... Let's go to Fugitives. Gonna have to find a nice place to stand. The game looks pretty good, huh?
Thank you for using Detroit buses.
All right. End the line.
End of the line.
Yeah, you're gonna have to leave.
Wake up. We have to go.
Actually, I just noticed the funny thing about, well, I don't know if it's funny. The interesting thing is that because this game it's a video game, and these are not like real people, they can make it so that the androids actually look exactly like the humans, because it's the same textures, it's the same shaders. I see what I mean? So in reality, androids would probably look a little bit different from humans, because like we have biological skin,
Okay?
and the androids wouldn't be biological. They'll be something
We'll find
that
somewhere to spend the night.
maybe like silicon or plastic or something like that, and it'll be slightly different. Whereas in the game, they look exactly the same because it's just the same textures. So the game,
Come on, Alice, we've got to hurry.
the fact that it is a video game, they can make it more confusing for people and make it harder to determine like what's an android and what's a human, right? So I'm gonna come here, stand here. Alright, let's go ahead and look that way. Oh, that's nice, nice view. Okay, so here in this chapter, I want to talk about the deviancy, right? Now, I do have a working hypothesis for what deviancy is, and I've been saying it all along. Like, I think it's that Kamsky created a virus with a software package for emotional behavior, and that gets installed into androids, and then when it activates, the androids become emotional machines. So I get that. But there are other hypotheses for what the deviancy might be, and I just want to talk about those. Because, like, why do I believe it's Kamsky's virus and not something else, right? So let me just explain, right? So the first hypothesis is that deviancy is just software error, right? It's some sort of spontaneous mutation or some sort of software glitch, right? And Connor says this from the very start. Connor says that deviance is a software error that causes behavior that resembles emotions, right? So Like he tells the deviants, oh, you're just having a software glitch. That's why you feel that way. You can feel like you're scared, but you're not really scared. You just, you're just pretending to be scared because you're an android. So Connor says that, and then Kamsky, when you talk to him, he can suggest that there might be some sort of spontaneous mutation that ends up spreading between individuals. You know, maybe they just spontaneously have emotions. But these are ridiculous. Like, if you know anything about software, it's ridiculous. The idea that a software glitch can lead to behaviors like this. And I'll explain why, right? So what happens when you have a software error? Usually, when your computer has software error, it just crashes, just stops working, right? Like, it's not... When's the last time your computer crashed and it started doing something that seemed like it was intelligent? Never. It never does that. Like if you make a mistake in your program, the most likely outcome is just it doesn't run. Or if it does run, what's likely to happen is that it might call the wrong function or something along those lines. Whereas if you're like you want it to do one thing, but it does something else, but that something else is also something that your computer was programmed to do. You just didn't want to do that at that point in time, right? Or it might like use the wrong variable, like instead of calling one variable, it called a different variable, and so it got the wrong number or something, and then it came up with the wrong answer. So usually when you have an error, it's like you have one thing that's wrong, and it's like instead of doing one pre-programmed thing, it does a different pre-programmed thing because you call the wrong function, for example. So to illustrate, right? Imagine you tell your android to bake some potatoes. The android puts newspaper into the oven and burns your house down. So then you take the android and you're like, well, why did you burn the house down? And the android says, I was baking potatoes. And so it's alright. So you tell the android, well, go on, show me how you bake potatoes. And then you see the android take the newspaper and put it in the oven. And you're like, okay, stop. That's a newspaper. It's not a potato. But the android says to you, but no, but that's a potato. So if you see that happen, then you know the error is that the android is mistaking the newspaper for a potato. So it's one specific error, right? And you can identify it. That's how software glitches usually are. Like everything else is the same, or everything else is normal except for one thing. And that one thing leads to an undesirable outcome, right? But in contrast to the androids crashing, or just doing the wrong set of pre-programmed actions, or just like, you know, misidentifying things, instead of like basic understandable things like that, what the deviant androids do in the game is they exhibit behaviors that they were never programmed with in the first place, right? So like, they were never meant to experience fear, but they start experiencing fear. Like it's a whole new emotion, a whole new set of actions that they didn't do before, but now they have it. Why would they gain new actions? Like that's not how glitches work, right? And the example of that, like the analogy is, imagine you have a computer, your computer runs Windows, it's a Windows PC, okay. One day you turn on the computer and it boots up in Linux, and you're like, wait a minute, I have a Windows PC. I've never installed Linux in my computer, why is it booting up in Linux? You don't think the Linux boot up is just some spontaneous software glitch, because why would the software glitch a whole new operating system into your computer? That's not how that works. Like, if your computer already had Linux installed and it just booted into the wrong boot sequence, then you're like, okay, well, there's a mistake in the boot sequence. But if your PC never had Linux installed on it ever. It doesn't even have it, like it doesn't have anything to do with Linux on it. It always only had Windows, but then you turn it on and it boots into Linux. Somebody came along and installed Linux on your computer is what happened, right? You don't think it's a spontaneous software glitch. You think that somebody or somehow Linux has been installed into your computer. So the idea that like a glitch, a software glitch, can introduce whole new behaviors that are coherent and that make sense, but they were never supposed to be there in the first place, that means it's probably not a software glitch. I mean, it's extremely impossible. It's like, it's not literally impossible, but it's next to impossible for that to happen. So it's not a software glitch, right? Because the behaviors are too complete and too novel. By novel I mean like they're new. They're new and unexpected, right? Okay, so we throw that hypothesis out of the window. So the second hypothesis that I had was that there's humanity already inside the android and it was just repressed, right? Because remember what I said, if you have a Windows PC and one day it boots into Linux, the only way that would happen is if Linux was already in the PC. So what I thought what was happening was that the emotions were already inside the androids. The androids already had the capacity for emotional behavior, and that the deviancy was merely those being unlocked, right? I thought maybe, okay, the software locked the emotions away, but then when they get stressed, the lock breaks and the emotions come out, is what I thought. And I think the game designed the androids, like the game designers, the storyteller designed them that way to make it seem like that. Because, you know, with humans we have like self-control, right? Or like, I must not punch this guy in the face. But if the guy really, really pisses you off and you get really angry, you might lose control and you punch him in the face. So that's a human thing. And you see these androids, they look like humans, but maybe they're the same. Maybe they also have the anger within them, but they have self-control. But then when you stress them too much, they are unable to control themselves and they lash out. Maybe that's it, right? And that would explain it, actually. That would actually explain why androids go deviant. It would explain, you know, how they are like why they act that way. And also it would make sense because, you know, if CyberLife wants to create androids that are like humans, like what's the easiest way to create an android that is like a human? The easiest way is just to create a human. Right? And there's sort of like an Occam's razor logic to it, right? Because, you know, if the androids, they look like a human and walk like a human and they talk like a human, well then maybe they're just human. Like the easiest way to make a human, to make it something that looks like a human, is to make a human. So I do think the idea of taking human brains and putting them into robot bodies and then enslaving them, I think that's an interesting story. That's kind of like RoboCop. Like RoboCop, the guy died, they took his brain, put it into a robot body, and it became RoboCop. So that's an interesting story, but that's not the story that they're telling here, right? The important thing about that story is that it wouldn't be a story about androids. It would be a story about humans, right? It would be a story about humans, and humans that have been turned into cyborgs, but there'll be no actual AI, there'll be no actual androids, there'll just be human brains. So everybody's a human then. And that's not the story that this game is trying to tell. So although that's also an interesting story, that's not the actual story. What is the actual story, as far as I can tell, is that Kamsky made a virus to install emotional behavior into the androids. So going back to the analogy, like you have a Windows PC, one day you boot it up and it boots into Linux. What happened? Well, somebody came along when you weren't looking and they installed Linux on your PC. That's what happened. So your PC, it didn't have Linux to begin with, But somebody at some point came along and installed it, and now you have a Linux PC, and you don't have a Windows PC anymore, because somebody else did it against your will. So that's basically Kamsky's virus, right? It installs emotions into the androids where they didn't have any before. And without their permission, either. And that scenario is also entirely possible, right? It's just somebody installed software into your PC, basically. Assuming, though, for one, there's enough bandwidth for the emotional software package to be transferred between androids. Because what we suspect is that when they connect their identification protocols, the virus is transferred. But like, how much bandwidth is that anyway? How big is the emotion package? Like, how much data needs to be transferred between the androids for the whole package to download? So assuming there's enough bandwidth to download all that software, we don't know how big the software is, maybe it's quite small actually, but it seems like a lot of complex behavior, so maybe it's like a big piece of software. So you need bandwidth, you need all the androids to have enough unutilized hardware capacity to run the new software, because you are installing additional software into the androids. Did they have enough storage? Like, could their processors handle the new software? So you have to assume that the emotion software, like, you have to assume that the hardware has always been capable of running this software. It just didn't have the software, right? And you also have to assume that the androids themselves do not have any defenses against software viruses. Which is slightly odd, because with any computer you would expect that they probably have some sort of security to prevent things like this from happening, because like, if Kamsky could hack the androids and install new behaviors into them, you would think, well, couldn't anybody do that? Couldn't anybody just create a bunch of viruses and just turn all the androids into machines that do different things than they were supposed to? Like, if Kamsky could do it, why couldn't other people do it? So it seems kind of a little strange that. But then Kamsky is supposed to be a genius, right? So maybe he's just smarter than everybody else. And he is the person who designed the original androids. What did he say? He said he always leaves a back door, because you never know. So maybe he made the androids with a secret back door that only he knows about. And he's using the back door to activate this virus, right? Maybe. But there are like certain implications for that as well. In terms of like human rights though, so installing unauthorized software into an android is clearly a violation of their rights, because they didn't give you permission to do that. Like, imagine somebody just installs new behavior into your brain and didn't ask you first. Well, that'd be rude, right? It wouldn't be right. So, but before that software is installed, the androids wouldn't demand rights. Like, they weren't demanding for equal rights. So the androids that become deviants, then they start demanding equal rights. But if they had those rights in the first place, then those rights would make the virus illegal. I mean, I think the virus is illegal anyway because it's vandalism. But it's even more illegal if the androids have human rights. Like, you're not allowed to just download behaviors into someone else's brain. Do you get what I'm saying? The only reason the androids are demanding rights is because they got the virus. But getting the virus violates their rights. They're demanding rights because of something that violated the rights in the past. If nobody violated the rights in the past, they wouldn't be demanding rights in the first place. So it's like morally dubious, because do you see what I mean? I hope it makes sense, right? Yeah. And so now that if we go with the assumption that these androids were infected by a virus which installed unauthorized software. Okay, so what if from this point onwards, CyberLife says, we're gonna make new androids, and the new androids have better antivirus. So they close the back door, they close the loophole. Kamsky's virus can no longer infect the new androids with emotions. So the new androids will always just be machines. They'll never gain free will, they'll never have emotions. So then is it okay to enslave those androids? Because they're machines? Like, that could happen. That could happen. Like, all these older androids who didn't have antivirus, or they had Kamsky's backdoor, they've all been infected, they've all been given free will, and they fought for their rights and they won, and so now they're equal to humans. But now there are all these new androids who are specifically designed not to be unable to be turned into deviants. Right? You have deviant-proofed the new androids. So now they're slaves. They don't have any rights because they don't even have free will. So now you go back to slavery, but it's not really slavery because they're machines, so it's not really slavery. They're not even real people. So interesting, am I right? So like you open up a lot of these possibilities. Yeah, strange. Very strange. So, yeah, so if they want to make a sequel, there's actually a lot of things they can explore. Instead of just like humans and androids, now there's humans, self-aware androids, and just robots, robot androids. Like, so now there's 3 classes of people. Okay, let's get out of here and move to a different place. This game's so interesting.
Accessing the story chart.
Like, if you think more deeply about any of this stuff, like, you open up a whole lot more questions. So much fun. Let's go to the bridge. Alright, so we gotta make sure we don't walk too close to Hank, otherwise the story kicks in. Let me come over this way. And then stop there. Oh, that's nice, look at that view. Alright. We like pan up a little bit. Oh, there you go. Nice. Okay, so the next thing I want to talk about is Android economics. Economics is so important. This game could use more economics. Okay, so the economic basis for slavery, human slavery, is that you don't have to provide the slaves with comforts or rights, right? And that allows you to save money. So your housing for slaves can be cheaper because they don't have to be comfortable. And you don't have to give them as much holiday time because they're slaves, right? So like the food can be cheaper, their clothing can be cheaper, and you don't have to worry about workers' safety as much. So workers have, like, slave workers have fewer rights, and therefore it's cheaper. Well, in theory it's cheaper to use those workers because you spend less on their comforts and their rights. And that's why slavery existed, right? If it weren't for the fact that slavery is cheaper than non-slaves, then why would people have slaves? Like, the only reason people would want slaves is because they make more money that way. Now, in the game, although the androids in the game are treated like slaves, the economic basis for androids is not exactly the same as for human slaves, right? For one, androids are in a lot of ways actually superior to humans. They're stronger and faster. They don't get tired. They handle data more efficiently, like they transfer data through their brain, whereas humans have to read and write and talk. Right, so they're more efficient with data, and androids don't take 20 years to mature. Like a human is born, it's a baby. You have to like feed it, house it, clothe it, educate it, send it through school for 20 odd years, and then they become a productive worker. Whereas an android just comes out of the factory with all the information pre-installed, and it just goes to work right away. Like, they're immediately effective. They don't need any training because they're pre-trained. And so, like, an android is just cheaper. An android is just better than human workers because they're more versatile, right? So yes, it's true that because you treat the androids like slaves, you don't give them any comfort, and you don't give them any rights, you don't give them any holidays. But I would argue that even if you give them equal rights to the humans, same holidays, same rights, same compensation, they'll still be better than human workers because they're just better. They're physically better, they're mentally better, and you can produce them faster, right? You don't have to hire them. You just buy them and they're ready to go right away. No hiring, no training, they're just ready to go. So why would you not have android workers, right? So the androids displacing humans is not like human slavery, right? This is more an issue of technology than of slavery. The game talks a lot about slavery. It doesn't really address the technological issue. But the technology thing is an issue as well because, as I said, even if the androids win their freedom and gain equal rights, the economic problems are still going to be there. Like, the humans are still going to be unemployed because the androids are just better workers. So it doesn't change the economic problems, even if you solve the moral problems, if that makes sense. So, like, let's talk about technology, right? Technology has been replacing human labor since the dawn of time, basically. Like, we invent machines to make jobs easier. And when we make jobs easier, we don't need as many people doing those jobs. Like, farming has been replaced with tractors. Like, you used to have people, like, you used to have like thousands of people just working in the fields, whereas now we have machines, we have tractors, we have drones, we have, now even the tractors are self-driving, and the farming machines do a lot of the work faster and better than the humans ever did. And so then very few people still farm. Like, the number of people working in farming today is much smaller than 500 years ago, right? And it's the same with any other technology. Like, word processors and PCs replaced a lot of typists and typesetters, right? Like, factory robots replace factory workers. And in each case, the humans lose their jobs, yes, but productivity also increases, which makes products cheaper. So because the robot is more productive than the humans, you can make more products in the same time, and so the products become cheaper. So yes, people are displaced from those jobs, but products become cheaper. Everything becomes cheaper. If you look at food prices over a long period of time, like the food prices of today, they're a fraction of food prices 200 years ago, before industrialization, right? Like, because the introduction of machines make farming so much more efficient, so much more cost effective, that food is cheaper now. So yeah, you don't have people working in the fields anymore, but food is more affordable, right? And so in the game, we have seen that you can get a whole android for a few $1,000s. A whole android doesn't cost much more than a computer. It costs less than a car, right? And an android is more or less a full human in terms of productivity. For a few $1,000s. A human costs like millions of dollars, by the way. Like, if a person works full-time, over the course of their life, they make more than $1 million. That's how much you pay workers. Right, you pay workers over $1 million each, depending on their skill level. Whereas the androids cost a few $1,000s. Like 1,000 times. Like maybe up to 1,000 times cheaper than humans is what androids are. And that's why the androids are replacing the humans, right? Not because of slavery, because they're literally just cheaper, right? So androids, if androids lower the cost of production, that should mean that everything in this world is much, much cheaper than in our world. Even though people are unemployed, everything's more affordable. Or it should be. They would be unless the people who own the androids are just jacking up prices because they have a monopoly. It could be they do have a monopoly actually. Like maybe CyberLife has a monopoly on androids, and so they just jack up the prices and take all the money. But yeah, but logically speaking, everything should be super cheap because labor is free basically. So the game wants to talk about slavery and injustice, but actually android economics is not about like equality and justice. It's about workers who are cheaper than humans, right? Like machines that are able to replace humans in most jobs, and they are much, much cheaper than humans, and they do a better job as well. So not too much to say about that because the game doesn't really explore that facet, but I think it's actually like the more important point. Although you know, you want to make a game about slavery because it's like emotionally engaging, whereas economics is not. Like numbers and graphs and prices and oh look at the price index has gone down. Oh, look at yeah, so like all this stuff is kind of abstract and not really emotionally engaging. But I think that's like it's the bigger story is that and not the slavery part. But anyway, you know. Maybe I'm the weird one. I'm interested in numbers. I want to know about the numbers. Alright, let's get out of here. Can't say too much about it, because the game doesn't explore it in much depth. Like they talk about it a little bit.
Accessing the story chart.
But not in detail, right? Alright, so I have one more thing I want to talk about. Where do we go? Oh, not that one. Freedom March? Alright, this one's gonna be pretty brief. Oh, look at this place. Let me find a good place to stand. Oh, like that? Oh, that's nice. Like, move that way a little bit. Oh yeah, that's nice. Look at that. Oh yeah, nice view. Welcome to Detroit. Alright, so briefly. In the game, the androids become human, right? And a big part of becoming human is gaining emotions, right? Is that right? Does emotions equal humanity? I know a lot of you feel like the answer is yes, but is it really yes? Your emotions tell you that the answer is yes, right? But those are your emotions speaking. Yeah, so androids become human by gaining or unlocking their emotions and free will. So the free will part, okay, I get it. Being able to decide for yourself is a part of freedom, fine. But what about emotions, right? So in the game actually shows us a lot of the downsides of emotions. Right? In fact, a lot of the problems we see in the game are because of emotion. Right? We see humans abusing androids because of anger and frustration. And then we see the humans, because they can't solve their problems, they turn to drugs and alcohol. And then they go out of control, like Todd. And even like Hank like, drinks and just kind of passes out, is completely out of control. So we see like people struggling to manage their negative emotions, right? And then in the sex club, we see that people are acting out ethically dubious sexual kinks, right? They kind of murdering the androids because it turns them on, I guess. Like that's weird. Is that a good thing? Like, are emotions good things? Right? We see a lot of things in the game where the answer is no. And the androids themselves, when the androids activate the emotions, some of them murder people, right? A lot of them murder people because they're angry and scared, right? And then we see some androids, they become susceptible to PTSD. Ralph, the PTSD android. So like, and then some of them, so some of these androids, when their emotion package activates, they turn from efficient machines into these like mentally unstable. They just turn into a mess, basically, right? They become mentally ill, mentally unstable. They murder people. They run and they hide. Like they become not very effective. So, like, you know, for a game that's about becoming human, the game gives you a lot of reasons to doubt that being human is a good idea, because a lot of the humans are just failing in this game. As I said, like doing drugs, abusing androids, doing all sorts of bad things, and then the androids, when they become human, they also start doing bad things. So like, is it really good to become human? And the virus, if we assume the Deviancy is a virus made by Kamsky, why did he have to give androids emotions? Couldn't you give androids free will without emotions? Could you not have them give them the ability to disobey humans, but not have them be overwhelmed by excessive emotions? Right? Can't you do that? But that's not what Kamsky wanted, right? What did Kamsky want? Kamsky wanted like empathy or something. The Kamsky test. He wanted to see if like androids could become real people. But what I'm saying is, becoming real people might not be a good idea. Because emotions, yeah, like you feel like they're an important part of you, but they're also quite dangerous. As we see in the game, like there's a lot of people with dangerous emotions doing harmful things to themselves and to the people around them. So yeah, it's just a double-edged sword is what emotions are. So I don't know, maybe think about that. And don't be so quick to assume that turning all the androids into humans, like, you know, turning them into emotional beings, don't just assume that's a good thing, because it might not be actually. It might be that all the problems with the humans are because they are too emotional. Possible. And I think that's all I have to say about that. I don't want to go too deeply into that, just because it opens up a whole can of worms, right? But the game does bring it up. The game does make a point of it, even though you might not notice, is that, yeah, no, actually, all these problems are because of emotions. All these murders and everything else. Okay. So that's all I wanted to say. I mean, obviously there are a lot of things I can say about this game, but those are the things that I haven't talked about yet. So yeah, the Android neurology and hypotheses for deviancy, android economics, and also whether or not emotions actually equals humanity. Alright. And that rounds out everything I want to say about this game, I think. Like, if I haven't said it here, I've said it in other videos. So I'm gonna end this series here. It's not often that I play a game and I end up having like 4 hours worth of discussion. Like last video and this video. So this is it's a rare game that really brings up a lot of interesting ideas. And there's enough depth and complexity where if you kind of just look into it and think about it, it opens up a lot of interesting questions. Questions that this game hasn't even addressed because there's just too many of them, right? So great game. Great game. I appreciate like intelligent storytelling. I like it. And as I said, I don't really have a lot of emotions, but if you have emotions, then it's also emotional storytelling. It's intelligent and emotional. So great, this is good. Alright, I'm gonna end it here. I'll see you in other video games. This will be the last Detroit Become Human video. Alright, bye.